sentenced to death because one of the people he tried to kill was the nurse who laughed at him.
Japanese politics got pretty interesting after Abe took one to the head. That was wild.
When Abe got assassinated, my daughter was interning with me. We were working on this podcast called The Evaporated. I was in Hokkaido going to private detective school, and I was like, Benny, the prime minister or the ex-prime minister has been assassinated. I need you to grab my business cards, your business cards, and your friend and your best friend, and get on the Shinkansen in 20 minutes. You're going to the scene. And you're going to go talk to the cops, and they probably won't talk to you. And she was like, you mean like right now, Dad? Like now? I'm like, yes, now. 20 minutes. You have 20 minutes. If I call in 40 minutes, you're not on the train. You're fired. And I was like, I won't really fire you, but really, you go now.
So she was there. The body wasn't even cold.
I think the body wasn't even cold because they were keeping him on life support, while they're trying to figure out what to do. I mean, he was dead.
Yeah.
I mean, he was dead on arrival. But they kept pumping blood into him for a while.
Brutal.
Do you know why he was assassinated?
Not really. And that's a huge oversight on my part because right when it happened, I knew a decent amount about Shinzo, but after he went down, I was like, wow, R.I.P. and then forgot about it.
Well, I mean, they asked me, I got asked by someone, this is unprecedented. Like no one would ever attempt to kill, a politician. And I was like, well, actually, the Yakuza killed the mayor of Nagasaki. And then in 2000, around 2000, a bunch of Yakuza who he screwed over threw Molotov cocktails at his office. So I was like, Abe has enemies.
Yeah.
But this case, he was killed by this guy named, I don't remember his first name.
Can we Google it, Alessi?
Yamagami. Yamagami-san.
Yamagami.
Yamagami-san was his parents got into the Unification Church and they blew through all his money and ruined his life. And Abe had made this sort of backdoor deal with the Unification Church, like the cult from South Korea, to gain political support. And he decided that the only way to crush this organization was to point out the political ties between the Unification Church and Prime Minister Abe and the Liberal Democratic Party by assassinating Abe.
Wow.
And he sent a letter before he did it explaining exactly why he was doing it. And when the Japanese public realized that, wow, our ex-prime minister has been in bed with this Korean cult, and, there's not a lot of love between the right wing and the Koreans in Japan. It pretty much had the desired effect. I think it is, I'm not saying it was a good thing, but it was probably the most effective political assassination ever.
Wow.
Because the Unification Church lost their religious status. And Abe lost whatever respect the people had for him in Japan because these are just not people you want to get into bed with. And Yamagami-san, who hasn't gone on trial yet, has like a folk hero status among some people in Japan.
God.
Weirdest political assassination I've ever covered. I did cover the assassination of the mayor of Nagasaki briefly.
When was that?
I think that was like 2007.
Okay, so a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, he was assassinated because he was trying to keep the Yakuza, the Yamaguchi-gumi in particular, out of public works. And they were like, well, if they throw us out of public works and construction, that's bad for business everywhere. So we're going to have to make it a judicious example of someone. The Japanese mafia tends not to kill people because it's bad blood and they're supposed to be humanitarian organizations.
Yeah, they got a magazine.
Oh, yeah.
We're just looking at this.
I have
before it looks so official.
I have 20 years of these like stacked up in my second home. Because if you're a reporter covering organized crime in Japan, you have to know who's who. You have to be able to recognize the names and faces.
Yeah.
And since they're, there's people on the cover. I mean, that's the head of the Yamaguchi-gumi, the largest organized crime group in Japan. He's still alive. I think at like 81, he's still running the organization.
I can't show this page, Alessi, but it would get interesting.
Oh, is it the penis enlargement ad? Because there's always a penis enlargement ad. No, okay.
It was female-oriented, but
yeah.
Either way. Penis enlargements in Japan, they're going around these days?
I mean, well, that would be a whole other tangent, but there is there is a Yakuza boss who ended up getting sentenced to death because one of the people he tried to kill was the nurse who laughed at him while he was getting his penis enlargement procedure done.
No.
That would be Nomura from the Kudokai.
Wow. I see why he became a gangster.
Well, yeah, I mean, because literally the nurse said, I'm sort of making a pun here, but she said like, as he was wincing, like, look at you with all your, with all those tattoos that take hundreds of hours and are very painful, and you can't take a little prick.
And I'm laughing, but she got killed for that.
She didn't. It was attempted murder.
Oh, it was attempted. All right, so she's still kicking. Nice job, lady.
Yeah, and this guy, Goto Tadamasa, who I'm not a fan of because he once put a contract out on me.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. He was once the largest shareholder of Japan Airlines, very wealthy, very powerful.
Is he chewing on a toothpick in that?
I think so, yeah. I once put up a photo of him eating yakisoba from a Yakuza video that was like a Succession video, and he really hated it. But,
yakisoba?
Which is like Japanese spaghetti.
All right, you're dealing with someone who went into a Chinese restaurant 4 years ago and ordered sushi. So I just want to warn you. All right,
it's okay.
I'm not the most cultured in that part of the world.
Whenever I go to France, they have yakitori fromage, which is like a yakitori chicken stick with like cheese on it, and you tell the French like, this is an abomination, and you would never have this in Japan. So it's okay that you order sushi at a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, I was with a couple of my Asian friends. They weren't too happy. I was like, where the fuck is the sushi? They're like, it's a Chinese restaurant. I go, I know. And they're like, yeah, it wasn't good. But anyway, what got you, a kid from Missouri, so into Japanese culture that you've now spent the last 35 years of your life living there? And again, we're going to get to all the good things you're covering, but like what makes you want to do that? What's up, guys? If you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button and hit that like button on the video. And if you don't have time to watch this episode right now, I'd really appreciate it if you saved it to your watch later playlist on YouTube. Finally, if you'd like to follow me on Instagram or X, those links are in my description below.
Well, so the short version of this story is that in high school, it was like a punk rocker in a really preppy high school. You were either like a redneck or like a preppy. I mean, this is like the 1980s. So I got picked on a lot, and there was this one guy who really picked on me a lot. Well, we made peace, so I'm not going to say his name. Anyway, I decided that that the only way I could survive the rest of my high school was just to beat him up.
Oh,
but of course I was like, I'm not going to win in a fair fight, so. But I need to show that people should leave me alone. So we were in the middle of class one day, and as we were walking out, I kicked him in the balls, and when he leaned over, I grabbed his hair and smashed his face into the table, and probably broke his nose. He was bleeding from his nose, and I was like, okay, I'm probably be expelled. I mean, now I'd probably go to jail because
you did the old hair smash. That's some good shit. That's some Jersey shit right there.
Well, I mean, it works effectively, right? I mean, I sort of asked my father who'd done like martial arts all his life, and he's like, hey, Dad, could you teach me a few moves? And I don't think he thought that I would really do it. So he's sort of sitting there with sort of bleeding a little bit, and the life sciences teacher, which was biology. I don't know why we call it life sciences because it's the 80s. Sort of took us aside, and he's like, he tells everybody to leave the classroom, and he's like, Jake, and Mr. H, I see that there's something has just happened, and I'm not really sure what happened. So there are two possibilities. One is that, Jack, you tripped, and you need to go to the nurse's office. And the other is that Mr. Aldestein beat you up, and you need to go to the nurse's office, and he needs to be expelled. But if that's the case, then by the end of the day, everyone will know you got your ass kicked by the skinny Jew. So what will it be? And he said, I tripped. So off he went to the nurse's office.
What a gangster of a teacher.
And then as I was sort of like, going, he was like, excuse me, Mr. Aldestein. We cannot solve our problems with anger and violence. I understand why you are upset, but that is not acceptable. I see you have some anger issues. And he says, and I would predict that he is going to come back and eventually try and return the favor. So what I'm going to suggest you do is that there's this good karate school that you should enroll in, and they'll teach you how to channel that anger and defend yourself.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, what if I don't? And he says, then you're going to be expelled. And I said, great, I'm taking karate.
And that's how it starts.
That's how it started.
So when you went to do karate, because this is something a lot of kids do and they don't end up fucking moving to Japan. Like, what made you fall in love with the culture?
Well, my teacher, Mr. Foley, John Foley had grown up in Okinawa, and he's sort of on the spiritual side of things. And I really enjoyed karate, and we would meditate before the sessions and afterwards. And I felt like, oh, this is very calming. Like this helps me feel like I'm in control because I did have anger issues.
This is the 80s?
This is the 80s.
Did he grow up there in the wrong years?
I don't know, man. I mean,
I
don't know when Foley grew up. No, he wasn't that old. He was
Okay.
like, maybe 20 years older than me, or 15 years older than me.
Right.
I think his father was in the military. And then, I started studying, like, okay, I like karate. And so I was studying the culture and the literature. And then I started reading about Buddhism because we were doing meditation. And I was like, it would be nice to go to study karate in the birthplace, which it's actually Okinawa, but going to school in Okinawa wasn't very feasible. So when I was at the University of Missouri, they had an exchange program. One day, I was literally walking across the campus on my way to McDonald's. I don't have very good healthy eating habits at the time. And this study in Japan flyer hit me in the face. So I had to make this monumental decision. Like, should I immediately go see about this program or should I get a Filet-O-Fish? And I was like, the Filet-O-Fish will always be there. So I went over and I talked to them about the program, and they told me I couldn't go because you had to have 2 years of Japanese under your belt to go. But it turned out, because Japan was in the middle of this, what they call the bubble economy, and was very expensive, that they had this exchange program with 20 Japanese students coming from Sophia University and no one going from the University of Missouri. And in probably the best negotiation in my life, I said, I'm certainly not an expert on Japanese culture, even though I have taken karate for many years. But I do know that if you have 20 people coming and no one going, that's not an exchange program. That's a fiasco. So you should let me go. And you should be glad that I am applying.
Gracing you with my presence.
And I said, I understand that you're saying that it's expensive. There must be a way that other people manage to survive there. And they're like, yeah, they teach English on the side. I said, great. I'll do the same thing. So let me go. And they gave me the application form, and I filled it out, and I was approved.
And now you never left.
I never left. So I was there a couple months, living in what we call a gaijin house, kind of like these low-rent housing for foreigners who have a hard time finding places to live in Japan even now.
Watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.